church is going to look for passages like this and misappropriate them. Of course, they're hopelessly drowning because there were great men like Daniel, who, no sacrifice, lived in exile in Babylon, who God called beloved, and people who were not very good people, like the citizens of Nineveh that repented and God forgave them in Jonah chapter 3. Tanakh is filled with people who were broken but changed their lives around and emerged as great, not as children, but as adults. And God says, act like a man, grow up. And that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is calling upon us to do. Banu matem l'Hashem Elikechem. You are, after all, children of the Lord your God.
Gabriel, you're live on the air. Go ahead and tell us your question for Rabbi.
Hi, guys. It's an honor to speak with you both. I appreciate everything you've done.
Thank you.
My question was, in Genesis before the flood, it says, God saw that all the thoughts of man's hearts were only bad all the time. Is this why the Christians seem to believe humans are naturally inclined toward evil more than good?
No, it's the reverse, meaning the cause and effect are reversed. So Christianity conveys what was widely known in dualistic religions. This world was a broken world. In Gnostic-type religions, that includes everything that falls into that rubrics, Gnosticism, Manichaeism. This world was just a bad place, and everything is broken, and there's good reason to believe that. In the ancient world, people just died, and they didn't even know why. They didn't understand. They didn't know anything about microbiology or tectonic plates. They didn't understand any of this. So they saw the world about them as just broken. Man was broken. People died inexplicably. Conversely, they looked up at the sky and they saw planets that move with perfect symmetry and very predictable. So they saw this world as a broken place. And whichever god or gods are running the planets were definitely the different God than this world, the Neoplatonic view that this world was created by a demiurge, a God, but a certainly imperfect one. So that is what produces Christianity, that we're just broken. I mean, if I asked you the question, if modern medicine didn't exist, would you be alive today? Many of you watching me right now would say, no, I'd probably be dead, right? We live in a time where, if God forbid we get sick, there's very likely a doctor who can tell you what you need, and a surgeon, God forbid, whatever. It's not, but people live a long time now, and infection, they didn't know anything about that. They didn't know what mental illness was. When you have people like casting out of demons, what was really going on is people were just psychotic, and people were, casting out demons, but they just don't understand psychosis. So what we have now, what Christians have to do, this is very Pauline, that man is sinful. This is Romans chapter 3. But what he has to do is come up with some sort of explanation of why do we need Jesus for? Well, man is hopeless and sinful, there's nothing he can do. And then Christians would look at these passages. Now, the passages that man is sinful from his youth, or I was conceived in iniquity, as Psalm 51, is something completely different. Why is it youth? Why didn't just say man is sinful? Why his youth, or as a child, or conceived in sin? Well, because although we typically look at a baby as, look how innocent, we look at a child and say, oh, how blissful. In the view of Tanakh, babies and children, of course, they're not responsible for their actions. They're not responsible for their behavior. They don't have the requisite maturity to know the difference between good and evil. The superego, the moral precepts of the minds is not developed yet. But children and babies are very selfish, really. I see my one grandchild, hitting my other grandkid over the head, and I'm going, why'd you do that? And we see children doing that, like, why did you take away your sister's toy? It's like, So they're always doing things that are very self-centered, and they don't care if mommy has to get up in the middle of the night. Now, the hope is that you grow up and you mature, and that's why when we say that someone is behaving like a baby, that's never a compliment, right? When we say you're behaving like a child, that's never understood in a way that's complimentary, right? It always means that you're just being very selfish and you're behaving like a child. That's what's in view in these passages, and that is when people grow up, so chronologically they're an adult, but they're behaving like children. That means you never developed. You never became, thoughtful and mature and empathetic about others, the feelings of others. And that's all Tanakh is saying here, is that when people are behaving like children. Now, the church is going to look for passages like this and misappropriate them. Of course, they're hopelessly drowning because there were great men like Daniel, who no sacrifice, lived in exile in Babylon, who God called beloved, and people who were not very good people, like the citizens of Nineveh that repented and God forgave them in Jonah chapter 3. Tanakh is filled with people who were broken but changed their lives around and emerged as great, not as children, but as adults. And God says, be an adult, act like a man, grow up. And that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is calling upon us to do. Banu matem l'Hashem Elikechem. You are, after all, children of the Lord your God. Thank you for your question, William. Thank you. Shalom. If you enjoyed this program, please like and subscribe.